People always want to improve. And in a rhythm game like Mania, where there is a continual fight for the leaderboard, this wheel is reinforced. This video is meant to be a very big pack of tips. But of course, I'm not the first to do this, and a lot of things that I'm going to say can be found on some other videos. You can watch some of them in the description below after this one, but I tried to cover all the things they said without copying, of course. I split this in many parts so that you can watch only the one you're interested in. And with that out of the way, let's start. First, some general and basic advices. There's a tip I have to put in this video because it's the obvious one: play more. That is to say, do not haul if you cannot clear a 2-star the very first week you play. Then, if you are a pure beginner, please try all the key modes before going full 4K. I know you will, because it's easier to learn, but remember that playing some 6, 7 or even 9K can help you broaden your horizons, and that can only bring you good things. Playing other VSRGs is also a thing you should consider. This can help you understand the flaws mania have. Furthermore, having to reset up everything can be a way to find out that your setup was bad. As an example, I found out I had offset problems when I tried Quaver and Etterna. You can also play other rhythm games that are not VSRGs, like Timecodes, because there is always something to find that will benefit you in Mania. About maps now. You'll need a lot of them to get better, and here are some tips when it comes to downloading them. If you like the map, you can play the other ones of a mapper by clicking here. Also, if you want to look for specific types of maps, you can use keywords on the web page. There are a lot of keywords, but here are the main ones. And if you really are into the game, the one thing I'll advise you to do is to download all the loved maps, and even all the ranked maps if you have enough space on your computer. Of course, it's very extreme and not everyone has to do so, but it can help you if you play a lot. Now let's discuss settings. First, make sure you have the 2 evil boxes off. Then find a skin you like, and remember that you can be good on almost every skin. You also need to find nice keybinds. Oh, well, no. In fact, keybinds do not matter at all. As long as you play with 2 hands and 4 fingers, you'll be good to go. Scroll speed is also a thing that a lot of beginners talk about. And again, it do not matter that much. Just stay between 20 and 35 and find yourself a comfortable value. You should not change it to hit certain patterns or for certain maps. When you do change it, it should always be a long-term change. Also, remember that changing skins or key modes often make you change your scroll speed. Offset is a hard thing to set up, and I might do an entire video about it later, but the most important thing to do is to turn on the hit error meter and making it big so that you can see your mistakes. Last about settings, but not least, are the hit sounds. Okay, so this has been a huge drama in the community over the last month because people wanted it to be removed from the ranking criteria, so I'll give my opinion about it, but please understand that it's not unbiased. You should turn your hit sounds off and play with a white noise as hit sound. I'll talk about the keyboard later, but just keep in mind 2 arguments for you to listen to your keyboard instead of the hit sounds. Your computer can lag, not your keyboard. The sound of your keyboard clicking will always be more consistent than the hit sounds. And 2, this can make accuracy and offset settings harder. Plus, if you are a musician, it should highly benefit you. Okay, now that you're ready to play, what do you play? A common mistake new players make is to play a small pool of maps. In fact, it's very important to always play new maps so that you can learn a biggest variety of patterns. That's also why I recommend you to download all the ranked and loved maps. When you feel like you are near the end of your session, try to go outside of your comfort zone. Not too much, of course, to avoid stupid passes. The idea is just to push yourself a bit. Then try and play every skill set. It will be a pity not to play LNs, tech and even SV reading because you will need that at some points in your progression and that they are highly rewarding if you plan to enter tournaments. Stamina is also a thing that should catch your attention. When you first start to play the game, you often cannot play long maps, even if they are at your level. My advice, if you ever want to train it, is to choose maps that you find a little bit easy overall, but that are longer than what you normally play. As an extreme example, the parallax was my goal recently, and I'm proud I cleared it with only 3 pauses. You should also identify what you're bad at and try to train it. To help you get an idea of where you lack skills, you can try to play Etterna, or you can try my last advice on this topic, Dan courses. A Dan is a sequence of 4 maps that try to assess your overall level. There are a lot of different Dans, but the well-known ones are the Reformed and Underjoy's Ellen's Dan for 4K and the Jinjin's Dan for 7K. They act a bit like badges in Pokemon or in a ski school. I recommend you to try to focus on clearing them, but don't forget that every Dan has different clearing criteria. Also, keep in mind that Dans are not perfect. Here is a big list of things you should always avoid when playing the game, from the more obvious one to the ones you might not know. Do not play a chord instead of a single note, because it's easier. This is even worse in 7K, where people often confuse the notes and prefer playing a chord instead of trying to hit the good one. Do not play converted maps, but I'm sure you know why. They basically suck, because they are auto-generated. Do not look at the very bottom of your playfield. If you get used to this, you will never be able to up your scroll speed. Also, do not pause during gameplay. Apart from extreme maps like the Parallax, which is more than an hour long, you should never pause and resume gameplay because you are tired. In fact, you will never build up stamina if you do so. If you ever feel any pain, immediately stop playing and pass some cold water on your wrist. Do not play the same map over and over. The only thing you'll get with this is mind block and frustration. Do not manip if you play maps where you could avoid it. What I try to say is that playing grace notes or fast rolls correctly should always be in favor than playing quad. Do not think you have passed a map if you are under 90% in accuracy. A B on a map should never be considered as a pass, since it means that you didn't understand what you were playing and that you most likely manipped all the way along. Some people even argue that this value should be higher, like around 92%. Let's now discuss some other things you should always avoid, but that are less important. Not worrying about release timing will always be a threat to your playstyle. This is even more important for mania players because Core V1 do not count them properly. I'm not telling you to play long note release, but just try to make sure you hit easy LNs correctly. You can practice this by playing any easy hybrid map with Core V2. Then again, if you are a mania player, and especially if you play 7K, avoid very old ranked maps. Some maps were made 7 years ago. I know some of them are still good as today's standards, but you will often find yourself in a very big difficulty peak or in a very fat or unreadable SV at some point, and the mentality and the meta back in 2015, 16, 17 was very different. This is just an advice for your mental because it can be very frustrating. Lastly, do not change your skin, your scroll speed or your offset every day. You need to have a reliable setup in which everything is always the same so that you can focus on real improvement points. Changing everything every time will just lead you to think you are not getting better because of your software. And talking about software, we're going to also talk about hardware. Luckily, we are playing a game that do not need a lot of computer specs. You don't have to worry about your CPU or GPU as long as your game runs smoothly. But your keyboard is something you should care about. Of course, you can get better with every setup, and history proves it when you look at old players that had cheap membranes keyboards and were still better than us. But I would lie if I say that it do not matter at all. At top level, this game is an endless run against perfection, against time, against milliseconds. So a good keyboard will benefit you, which do not mean you have to spend $2,000. The only thing that matters is to have a good polling rate. I'll link you a whole video on the subject in the description, please watch it, it's very well made. Now that you know what to avoid, let's see what to aim for. Your main focus should always be pointed towards accuracy. Passing a map is a good thing, but can you S it? Can you FC it? Can you SS it? Focusing on raising your general accuracy level is always a better idea than focusing on raw skills, because it will strengthen your fundamentals, and you know that you cannot build a house without basements. When you get to the point where you can assess some maps, try to have a good ratio between perfect and marvelous judgment. Again, this game is all about reaching perfection. Getting very good ratio is the first step towards this dream. To help you get an idea of why you hit badly, look at your replays and the heterometer and adjust your offset or your receptors with this information. If you think a map is too hard for you, you can also downrate it with a little software. This is something I think everyone should do, as it helps you learn how to read dense patterns. And that half-time is clearly not enough. Let's hope Laser will release someday to fix this lag in this game. The last two parts will purely be about you, your body and your mental. First, remember to sit well and to relax. A bad position or a stress in your hand could be the starting point of an injury. I know this game is often about speed, but it's all about control and flow, not end destroying. That's also why you should always warm up when launching the game. It's impossible to play long jack or speed without being warmed up. To do so, just play some maps that you can hack easily and that are a bit below your comfort zone. Again, you'll prevent injuries and you'll be less frustrated to never PB on anything. Some people also have a very bad wrist position. When playing, remember that you have a lot of different options. You can play wrist up, down, a mix of both, and rotate your wrist when playing fast maps. If your position is causing you any pain, stop playing, don't hurt yourself for a game. Then about long sessions. You should always avoid playing all of your comfort zone for too long. A 2-hour session of hard maps should always be the limit. Taking breaks really is a good thing, and I recommend you even take days of the game. Even if you really want to improve, sometimes doing something else is the best thing to do. I know that when I take a day or two to play something else, I come back with a better reading and a better mindset. Then, mindset. What a transition. There is a saying in the standard community that says, please enjoy game. It basically says it all, but I'll elaborate. You want to have a strong mental when you play the game, and that's why you should always play when you like it, not for the leaderboards or just for your ego. Don't feel forced to play the game just because you reach a good level or worked hard to become good, as it will only bring you frustration. I call this the League of Legends effect. To prevent bad moods, be aware that bad days happen. Sometimes you're just not at your top level because your mind is elsewhere, you didn't sleep well, or whatever could happen in your life. Another thing you should not fall for is the PP system. It is extremely unbalanced, like star rating, and should never be a way to measure how well you did on a map. That's why you also should know what are the underrated maps and patterns. It's easy to understand that Jump Trails are extremely underrated and that Triumph and Regret is a far map, but beware, they are not alone. Finally, and this is maybe one of the best tips I could give you, try a lot of different things. Be curious, try to break new grounds. This game is old, sure, but you can always find something new. In conclusion, let's talk about outside of the gameplay. Try to skin and to map. This will give you an even better understanding of how the game and the meta works, and it can only bring you good things. You also really should try to meet your local community. I know physical tournaments are not a real thing, but there is a lot of Discord servers dedicated to certain country or certain language. This community is really vast and pleasant, and although there are drama sometimes, it's still better than most of the communities I've known so far. Thanks a lot for watching this video, I hope it will help you. This was a lot of work, but a lot of fun to make, so consider sharing and subscribing if you liked it. Use the comments below if you want to criticize or add anything. Sorry for my English accent, and have a nice day!